was such an idiot. I was so busy looking at you, admiring you, wanting to be like you, be loved by you. I lost myself.
Batman the Enemy Within made me feel something for the Joker that I never thought possible. I felt sympathetic, remorseful, heartbroken. He wasn't the Clown Prince of Crime, he wasn't Mr. J, he was John Doe. A lost man looking for guidance. A man rejected and used by everyone that he thought that he could trust. Socially awkward and inappropriate at times, yes, but at his core, all he wanted was to find someone who would accept him, warts and all. Over and over in the Batman mythos, we hear about how Joker lost his mind after one bad day. How one moment shattered his psyche into a million pieces, but this time, it wasn't just a story that I was told. It was a story that I shaped. If you'll come with me, I'll show you how my choices transformed John Doe into the Joker. How, in the end, I became his one bad day. Bruce is a man who lies to people. From the very beginning, the story is set up as one of identity. Which of our masks truly define who we are, and how does that affect those closest to us? The first thing we see Bruce doing is going undercover at a casino. The owner is an arms dealer who he's been tracking for some time now. I find this a brilliant way to foreshadow Bruce's future. So much of the game is him lying to practically every person he has in his life to some degree. At every turn, you're asked how much you're willing to make sacrifices both small and large for the sake of the mission. The operation, however, is interrupted with the arrival of the Riddler. Apparently, the casino owner went back on a deal they made and the masked menace is here to collect. This incarnation of the Riddler is absolutely barbaric. I'd say this is practically the first time I've ever actually felt intimidated by him. Most versions of him are some combination of goofy, pathetic, or almost harmless. This Riddler, in comparison, is an absolute psychopath who delights in the sheer violence his death traps create. Couple that with the fact that he's one of the most seasoned criminals in Gotham, and he makes for quite the threat, no matter how short-lived that prospect is. We confront him as Batman and manage to drive him away. Before he leaves, he throws Batman a puzzle box, adding that people will get hurt if we don't solve the puzzle. With the press of a button, he sets off some explosives and escapes. After recovering from the wreckage, we're able to speak with Commissioner Gordon, a loyal ally whose friendship will be tested with the arrival of Amanda Waller. Now, Waller is the textbook definition of fighting fire with fire. When faced with a world where the criminals are just as absurd as they are deranged, she's not afraid to stoop down to their level and meet them head on. But one thing that I find absolutely fascinating about her is her unwavering belief that everything she does is justified. As much as I expected to hate her, her conviction makes it so easy to forget how much of an awful person she is. The fact that I know she wants to save as many people as possible makes her eventual partnership with Batman so compelling. I actually end up cooperating with her more often than I didn't. Waller explains that she's here for the Riddler. He's an international criminal at this point and he's being chased down by the agency. The agency is basically a stand-in for whatever secret government branch you can fill your imagination with. A super CIA of sorts. Naturally, this means a conflict between them and the local police force. We also get to meet Agent Imana Vesta, a psychological profiler who gives us some extra info on the Riddler. She probes Batman a few questions, no doubt already building a profile on him, and after giving our response, we retreat to the Batcave in order to investigate the Riddler's box. The puzzle itself is rather simple for Bruce to solve, and it starts emitting a strange encrypted signal. Unable to crack the signal, he decides to hand it off to Lucius Fox, the man who practically built every gadget he uses. I don't really have a lot to say about Lucius in this game. He basically raises 7 death flags in your conversation with him over the Batcomputer, and it's kind of funny.
No, don't worry about it. It's actually going to be a big day for me. Tiffany starts at Wayne Enterprises. Tiffany? Really? Your daughter working alongside you? How wonderful.
Through him, though, we get to meet his daughter, Tiffany. Young and evidently smarter than her peers, she has a lot to prove trying to get out from under her father's shadow, and she doesn't waste any time doing so. She even hands us a personal drone that'll be very useful for later. She also notices the Riddler box, but we convince her that it's nothing to be interested in. Our conversation is then cut short by the arrival of Agent Avesta. She asks us the exact same questions that she asked Batman the night prior. It seems that the agent has some very accurate ideas about Bruce. Before we get to answer her though, an alarm blares through Wayne Tower and she hurries out of the room. We get a call from Lucius, who can only explain that he's solved the puzzle before an explosion ends his life.
Lucius! Lucius! No!
We then cut to his funeral. Tiffany is quick to confront us, asking if the puzzle she saw had anything to do with her father's death. This is where the game gives us our first chance to choose between deception or speaking the truth. I felt as though Tiffany at least deserved to know the truth, so I confirmed that the puzzle did have something to do with his death. Understandably upset, she snaps at Bruce and storms off. It is here we get to hear a familiar voice.
At least he went out with a bang, right? Now, for that, we can all be grateful.
This is John Doe, the Joker before he becomes the Joker. It's important to note that he and Bruce have met before. In the previous game, John was an inmate in Arkham Asylum who helped Bruce escape the facility. There's a very jarring difference between his current depiction and his depiction in the last game, however, as he's a lot more timid in this outing. He stutters quite often, and his laugh is more of a nervous tick. While some might chalk this up to the writers retconning his character, this actually makes a lot of sense. When someone has spent enough time in prison, they find it a lot easier and even preferable to live on the inside of a prison than having that freedom. Think of someone who is getting out today that went into the prison back in the 90s. Think of all that time leading a structured life. You're told when to get up, when to eat, and when to go to bed. Suddenly, your sentence is up and you have to decide all of this for yourself. It's like being born into a world of chaos at 55 years old. You barely have any idea what to do with yourself, but just on the other side of that fence that you just stepped through is a world that you know every little detail of. This is the state that John is in right now. He's barely out of Arkham and he's desperately looking for some kind of stability with his newfound freedom. He explains to Bruce that he'd like for him to return the favor he did at Arkham. He's met some friends and he wants to introduce him to them. While Bruce isn't interested at first, John mentions that the Riddler is part of their group and he's immediately all ears. After a bit of prodding, John confides that he isn't exactly good friends with the Riddler and even gives Bruce a general idea of where his hideout is. As the funeral comes to a close, we're given a choice to either trust John to come back to us regarding his friends or to place a tracker on him. Despite a short history, I decided to give him the benefit of the doubt. We then meet up with Gordon and, man, I wish I liked Gordon in this game. I'm not gonna lie, I found him really annoying. He suffers a similar fate to Kenny from The Walking Dead in that he turns into a whiny bitch the moment you form any kind of disagreement with him. It's always his way or the highway, and it's always over the most inconsequential shit. Anyways, the both of you manage to narrow down Riddler's hideout and decide to investigate it together. Unsurprisingly, the place is trapped and you have to solve a puzzle or die. I do actually really enjoy this sequence. It is pretty much the last time Gordon isn't annoying, so I'll savor this as much as I can. After solving the puzzle, you figure out how Riddler killed Lucius. It turns out that the signal from the Riddler box calls in a missile strike on its location. Riddler plans to use his exact same signal to attack every agency agent in the city, and you scramble to his location to stop him. You find Riddler on a boat holding a few agency guys hostage, one of them being Agent Avesta herself. After getting into a fight with him, you get trapped in a cage alongside Avesta, and now Riddler puts Batman into a jigsaw type deal. If he answers his riddles correctly, he'll hit Batman and Avesta with a sound blast. If he answers wrong, he'll kill the other agents. Wanting to keep as many people alive as possible, I decide that Avesta's hearing is not exactly a hard requirement. At the same time, Bruce readies the drone that Tiffany gave him. He figures that he could use the signal to lure one of the missiles to the cage, and the gamut works out for him. After the explosion sets them free, Batman's able to beat Riddler down and save the day. Before he can take him in though, a dart is lodged into the Riddler's neck and he dies from the poison. Waller arrives just in time to see the aftermath, and the fiasco gives her just the right excuse to take over the operation entirely.
Batman is clearly being misused as an asset to the GCPD. I'm taking direct control of law enforcement in Gotham, effective immediately.
What?
Gordon, you're being relieved of your stars.
She then takes us aside to tell us that she wasn't just here for the Riddler, no. She was also here to round up his allies as they're a potential threat as well. She then drops this gem.
But now I have you to lean on. A man who lives on both sides of the line and knows exactly when to cross it. Yes, you and I will be working together very closely. Bruce Wayne.
Shit. With this revelation, we don't have much of a choice but to cooperate with Waller. She explains that she knows that Riddler worked with the group and that John is part of said group. Speaking of the devil, explosions then begin to rock throughout Gotham. Working in construction must be a little bit of hell in this city. A coordinated attack is happening all over the city, the most concerning being a raid on the police armory. Leaving the other locations to the cops in the agency, Batman heads off to stop the raid. As we begin to pick the criminals off, we're quickly met with the arrival of Bane. Now, I am a huge fan of Bane. I own the entire Nightfall series, and his inclusion in anything DC is always a welcome sight. All of this is to say that the devs absolutely nailed his design. I'm always happy to see him wearing the luchador mask, and having him be a brick shithouse merits all of the good boy points. My one real gripe with him is that he isn't the genius that he really should be, but I'm at least glad to see his sense of loyalty shining through. Now naturally, Bane absolutely thrashes us when he uses his venom. After nearly getting our spine broken in half, we get thrown through a concrete wall and we get a chance to call for help. Now, we could call Gordon for backup or contact Waller for aid. While I wanted to stay loyal to Gordon after all our time together in the first game, Bane is just straight up a supervillain, and it just kind of feels like a smart idea to call in the agency. After giving Waller our coordinates, we pass out. A few hours later, we're rescued by Waller's agents and we get to have a short chat with Waller. This is where she first surprised me, because if you decide to be cordial with her, she's actually very open about the mistakes she makes as the head of the agency. She thanks you for contacting her about Bane, and you return to the Batcave to rest and assess what exactly happened. Looking over the reports, we find out that 2 other locations were attacked tonight, one being a bank robbed by Harley Quinn, and the other being a biolab attacked by Mr. Freeze. Figuring out that Bruce can use John as a way to get closer to the Pact of villains, we contact him and ask for a meetup. We meet up at the bar and we can see that John is elated at the news of the Riddler passing, perhaps a little too enthusiastic.
Know-it-all really got what was coming to him.
Authorities are refusing to comment on the death of the mysterious criminal known as Riddler.
Who am I? Who am I? You're a rotting, stinking corpse. That's who you are.
We brush it off for now as we try to convince him that we want to join the Pact. He reveals that the Riddler was actually the leader of the Pact before he was killed. He's apologetic about hiding the secret and promises to never hide anything from Bruce again. We solidify the promise with a pinky swear and we head out into the alley to meet Harley. Now, I've always been a huge fan of Harley's original design. Red, white, and black just go together perfectly, and the Jester design felt natural for her role as Joker's sidekick. Her design in this game is one of the only times I actually really enjoy the street look. If I had to hazard a guess as to why, it's probably because this is also one of my favorite inversion of Harley and Joker's relationship. Something about how Harley preys on John's naivete just makes my skin crawl. You can tell that he's nothing more than a toy for her to play around with, and when you couple that with her violent tendencies, it kinda leaves you on edge on what she'd do to him if he crossed her. This partially made me really protective of John. Anytime I saw her undermining him in any way, I went out of my way to try and empower him. Regardless of how you feel about Harley, she's still the gatekeeper to getting into the Pact. Besides trying to get into Bruce's pants, Harley expresses that she wants proof that Bruce is willing to work with the Pact. He might have a checkered past with his father, but that doesn't guarantee loyalty. She tells us to get her the Phalanx Key. Now, anyone who played the last game will remember that the Phalanx Key is a piece of Wayne tech that basically acts as an electrical skeletal key. Agreeing to her terms, we head to Wayne Tower to retrieve the key. It doesn't take long for Harley to start causing trouble as she knocks out one of your guards and even threatens one of your shareholders. The entire time, Bruce is basically flying by the seat of his pants trying to keep things from spiraling out of control. We eventually head down to our secret lab where we get a short flashback with Lucius. No game, I still don't have any strong feelings about him. One person who does have strong feelings for Lucius is Tiffany, who we find inside the armory. She saw everything that Harley's done so far, and she has every right to think that Bruce is mixed up with some shady shit. We manage to calm her down though when we reveal that Lucius worked for Batman. This makes her trust us enough to hand over the key. We give it to Harley, and she's pretty happy with it. On the way out, she also tells John to pick up an EMP generator that was lying around the lab. We then part ways for now. As Batman, we rendezvous with Waller and Gordon at the GCPD. Of course, the two are bickering up until we show up. Gordon gets dismissed, though he isn't very happy about it. Waller expresses her satisfaction with us working our way to the Pact. Because we called her people earlier, she even hands us a vial of fake venom that we can use on Vane. She then tells us to stay steady on our course and she goes on her way. We then get a text from John telling us we're in. Getting to the meeting point, we get nabbed by a bunch of goons and we wake up inside an abandoned train station. As far as introductions go, things could be a lot worse. Bane hasn't killed us just yet, but he certainly wants to give it a go. John decides to start a distraction and activates the EMP device. The act causes Mr. Freeze to come out running, and we get to show off our chops by deactivating it with ease. No, I did not struggle with this puzzle, you don't have any proof otherwise. While this calms everyone down, we still aren't completely in the Pact just yet. Harley calls us over to her office and she actually opens up to Bruce. I was admittedly taken aback in this scene. Hearing Harley express her real fear of being vulnerable around people, especially the Pact, really puts into context why she needs to go after people before they can do it to her. I still don't agree with her actions, but I can at least see where she's coming from. She then tells us to do whatever we can to get in good with the rest of the Pact, because we're going to need a majority vote if we're going to join in on the heist that's happening tonight. I absolutely love this portion of the episode. We get to walk around the hideout and interact with the Pact members more personally. We even get a chance to walk into John's room and have a short conversation with him regarding his opinions on the other Pact members. You really get the idea that John's just happy to be here for the ride, but there's always something that makes my stomach flip whenever I see that John will remember that notification at the top of my screen. While this is something that I would normally brush off in other Telltale games, I'm always left wondering if I'm doing right by John whenever I pick my choices. It makes me feel responsible for him in a way, and it really makes me want to become a good influence in his life. Regardless, he gives us some tips on how to get Mr. Freeze and Bane on our side. He even gives us a bottle of Bane's favorite beer. We manage to schmooze both of them by appealing to their sensibilities. With Mr. Freeze, we show a genuine concern for his wife Nora. With Bane, we show our loyalty by breaking a man's knee with a lead pipe. If we play our cards right, we can even sneak a vial of fake venom into his person. With all the members giving us a glowing recommendation, we get to join in on the heist. We give Waller the heads up before packing up and heading off. The next sequence has us attacking and raiding an agency convoy. Through the use of the EMP device, we knock out all their tech and we get to stealing whatever it is they're protecting. Unexpectedly, Waller actually tells us to let them have the package and we're forced to play along to keep our cover clean. The agents start fighting back and we're given the choice to either stop Bane or Harley from going into a rampage. Knowing that Bane is carrying the fake venom, I decide to head for Harley. Concussions are always preferred over dying, so Bruce gets to knock out a few agents. With the cops arriving though, we retreat to our getaway vehicle and Bane gets left behind when the fake venom messes with the system.
What's this? Huh? What the hell happened to my dose?
Back at the hideout, we finally get to see what the package is. Opening the box, it is revealed that the agency was carrying Riddler's preserved body, like a pickle in a jar. We don't get much time to wonder why though, as the final member of the Pact shows herself.
I've got what you need. For the right price.
To the Catwoman fans, I am so sorry for my choices later down the line. It's important to note that Selina was pretty much my Bruce's love interest in the first game. I managed to get the best ending possible with her, but she did end up leaving Gotham anyway. This is the first time they've met since then, and it's understandably just a little bit awkward. She explains that she's going to make a special pair of goggles for the big heist. Before she can, we do need to scan Riddler's eyeballs. Man, if I had a nickel for every Telltale game where I had to scan a dead guy's eyeballs, I'd have 2 nickels. It's not a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. We're able to ask how she got involved with the group, and she's able to explain that she actually knew the Riddler. An important detail is that he was apparently a lot more mellow before the events of the game, and something changed him into the monster that we met at the beginning of the game. Before we get any more information though, we get interrupted by...
You'll find I'm not disposed of so easily! You overstepped when you left him.
Oof. Bane's just a little bit angry after being left behind. With a few bullets, Harley diffuses the situation and correctly announces that there's a rat in the group. Her sights are immediately set on Bruce, but we actually get our ass saved when the goon from a convoy vouches for us. When things calm down, Harley talks to us in private and tells us that she knows practically everything about the heist Riddler was planning. The only snag is that she doesn't know where the actual location is. The answer is in his encrypted laptop, but she isn't willing to let Bruce have a crack at it just yet while the rat situation goes unsolved. As another test of loyalty, she decides to send us to Riddler's hideout to find anything that can help with the laptop. Catwoman and Joker are also volunteered to come along with us. When we get to the hideout, Waller contacts us and we discreetly accept the call. She explains that she couldn't move her men in because of the EMP blast. There is still something a little bit fishy with her story though, because she stays cagey about Riddler's body. We quickly give her all the details we have regarding the big heist and then we rejoin Joker and Catwoman. The entrance to the hideout is currently blocked off and I need you guys to see this next bit. It's seriously the funniest thing in the entire series.
Just have to get through these boards.
Don't worry, I brought my key.
Hey, I believe in you, John. You show that wall who's boss.
We then break inside, but we get by one Detective Bullock. John starts creeping up behind him, but before he bashes his head with a crowbar, we knock out the detective with a punch in the noggin. I really wish he had more of a presence in this game, but this is his entire appearance as far as I'm aware. It's a damn shame. I really like his character in the comics. We then clamber into Riddler's hideout and surprise! More traps! Even long after he's dead, Riddler continues to inconvenience me. Huh. I can touch that? Well, why not? Ah, that's why not. We solve the puzzle which unlocks an elevator down to a secret room. We convince John to give Bruce and Catwoman a little bit of privacy, wink wink, and then they head down to find his personal computer. Just like the laptop, it's locked, but a nearby flash drive has a decryptor. We access the computer, which mentions something called Project Lotus, but it also asks for a retinal scan. Unfortunately, Catwoman hasn't made the goggles just yet, and the computer fries itself. Catwoman then starts to shift the blame on Riddler on herself. She knows that Project Lotus was what made him the monster that he was, and she feels like it's her mess to clean up. Wanting Bruce out of the way, she handcuffs us to the chair and steals the drive. We then proceed to fight over the flash drive with John cheering us on. Without our gadgets though, Catwoman gets the upper hand and manages to escape. John, seeing all this happening, he tells Bruce that they need to have a talk.
Oh, that's the stuff.
It's actually a lot more pleasant than you'd think. John takes us to a cafe where he asks us for relationship advice for Harley. He sees through Bruce and Selina's dance and clocked in that they got the hots for each other. He wants exactly that with himself and Harley, and we give him our best advice, telling him that he should be himself if he wants to get to Harley. John struggles at first, but he actually goes on a really beautiful tangent about how Harley feels like the first thing that makes sense after he left Arkham.
Okay, here we go. I enjoyed the lights. They had a hum to them. Felt like a blanket. Fuzzy, even. I miss that on the outside. It doesn't feel as real here, you know? Out here, chaos seems to rule the day. It's loud and uneven. But you, Harley, you thrive on it. I could learn from that because I thrive on you. You're my light outside of Arkham.
After the conversation, we also asked John if he could help get Riddler's laptop for us. While he's a bit unsure at first, he eventually agrees and we go our separate ways for now. We meet up with Gordon again, and this is the part that just kinda spoiled him for the rest of the game for me. He can't handle getting his authority undermined for just a few days and thinks that Bruce is at the center of the Pact. On one hand, I kinda understand why he'd feel suspicious of him, but on the other hand, you'd think he would have gotten a clue that Bruce is more likely to be on Gotham's side after the events of the first game. He then outright threatens us by saying he'll go after Catwoman if we don't go after Bruce. We can't do anything against Bruce, of course, so he decides to put out an APB on Catwoman. We're then given the choice to warn Catwoman or not, but we're both chasing after the same laptop, and if I slow her down, I guess it's just kinda fair game. After he leaves, John appears behind us. He knew we'd be here due to the bat signal, and he figured he'd pop on by. He explains that he's a huge fan, and he says he'd even like to work with us. While Batman tells him that he doesn't take students, Joker offers to get the laptop from Harley. It's interesting that he's offering it to Batman right after agreeing to give it to Bruce. Not looking a gift horse in the mouth though, we agree and we meet up with him again the next day. As promised, he gives us the laptop and is giddy to have helped Batman. Before we leave, he asks if we can teach him how to throw batarangs.
Teach me anything. What about those, boomerangs you have? I promised to only use it for, you know, hero things. Probably. Please?
Fine.
We oblige, and then he also asks if he can keep the batarang to train with. We allow it, and he trots off happy as can be. We return to the Wayne Manor and we run into Selina. She's looking a little rough, no doubt having a close encounter with the police. She knows we had something to do with it, of course, and she is furious with us at first. We manage to calm her down though, even reigniting the spark that they had from the last game. Feeling safer, she decides to trust us with the decryptor and hands it over. In return, we take her to the Batcave so that we can decrypt the laptop together. Looking into Project Lotus, we find that it was an experiment made by a branch of the agency trying to make a weaponized virus. Riddler used to work there himself and he now wants revenge on them. Combing through the files, we find that the locations of the experiments happen at a spa in the city. With this info in hand, we decide to call Waller to tell her we know about the virus. She tells us she'll explain everything if we meet up at Wayne Tower, and we head off. Arriving at our office, we find Tiffany waiting for us before GCPD suddenly bursts into the room to arrest us. Again, Gordon isn't exactly on my good side. Tiffany explains that she's reached her wit's end with Bruce's secrets and went to the cops. Gordon doesn't really have a chance to take us in though, as Waller arrives and frees us. She strips him of his rank and his job for his action, and he leaves completely dejected. We ask Waller for a moment with Tiffany and explain everything to her. Everything.
I'm Batman.
You're Batman. The Batman.
She's shocked, of course, but she finally puts everything together now that we've told her the truth. We then tell her we'll talk more later, and we continue to speak with Waller. Waller explains that the Lotus Project was performed well before she took charge of the agency. By the time she assumed control, they went completely AWOL and continued with their experiments. Agent Avesta, who now has a hearing aid, backs Waller up on this. Waller then adds that the heist on the black site is going to be the perfect way to hit two birds with one stone, taking down the scientists and the Pact at the same time. While something feels off about this, I decide to trust Waller for now. We return to the Pact and find that Harley's been busy trying to find the rat. She calls us into her office and we give her all the information we found so far. While she's happy with what we've been able to do so far, she's narrowed down only two possible traitors within the group: Bruce or Catwoman. This was the single most difficult choice in the game for me. I actually wanted to end the game with Bruce and Selina getting together. Despite their back and forth, I actually enjoyed their chemistry between both games. One thing remains undeniable though: if we don't keep our cover, nobody's going to be able to rein the Pact in, and a lot of people are going to die as a result. Faced with an impossible trolley problem, I decide to save as many lives as possible, and I blame Catwoman. She doesn't get killed by this decision thankfully, but she does get attacked by the Pact and she gets locked up. At this point, there's no going back. We have to see things through till the end. We arrive at the spa and begin the big heist. With Bruce around, we're able to knock out a majority of the personnel before they get massacred by the Pact. We head down into the underground lab where the virus is getting held, and we even get a cute moment where John takes a group photo with everyone. Look at him. How could you hate the guy? I love him so much. I also find it absolutely hilarious how nobody questions just how insane Bruce is at fighting. Like, okay, taking down a guard or two I can understand, but outrunning a Gatling turret and then ninja flipping off a wall? Come on guys, that's not normal. We then find the room where the virus is being incubated. Conveniently, the defense system locks the Pact outside after we get in. Bruce sprints to destroy all the samples, finally shedding his cover. The Pact then break into the room and try to save as many of the remaining samples as they can. Bruce tussles with Bane and we almost get killed for it. Our life is saved, however, when a batarang embeds itself in Bane's back. I love you, John. You are such a good boy. Mr. Freeze then manages to save a few samples, but he gets attacked by Harley, who steals the last vial. She then runs into the elevator and leaves everyone behind, including John. In the aftermath of the heist, John has escaped and Waller's arrived, none too pleased. We might have captured Bane and Mr. Freeze, but John is still out there and Harley is in possession of the virus. The fact that Waller wants to salvage the tech behind only raises more concerns out of Bruce and Agent Avesta as well. When we suggest asking Freeze about Harley, Waller is really quick to shut the idea down. Given everything we know about her, this is really weird. She's normally the type of person to leave no stone unturned, and now she's suddenly against it? That's weird, man. When she leaves, Bruce and Avesta immediately decide to ignore her orders and go to ask Mr. Freeze what he knows. He tells Bruce that he won't spill anything unless he does one thing for him. He got infected by the virus when Harley made her escape. Waller is likely going to run experiments on him, and he believes that he can survive it if Bruce lowers the temperature in the airlock. We agree to his deal, partially to get the info, and partially because he doesn't deserve to be a lab rat. He then explains that Riddler was infected by the virus and survived. Not only that, but a serum can be derived when the virus is mixed with his blood, allowing it to heal people rather than hurt them. That's why the agency preserves his body, and that's why the Pact wanted it too. Mr. Freeze can use the blood to cure Nora, while Bane can use it to cure his addiction to the venom. After he finishes, Bruce reveals that he needs to return to the Pact's lair, with Vesta deciding to accompany him. This is where Vesta confesses her big secret. She was the one who figured out who Batman is, and she was the one who gave that information to Waller. She asks for forgiveness, of course, and I'm mad. Yeah, a lot of this happened because of her, but I know she's got her heart in the right place, so I decide to forgive her stupid ass, at least for now. Taking Bruce's car, we discuss Harley's wishes for the Lotus virus. Apparently, her father had a brain condition that ultimately led to him taking his own life. Harley fears that she inherited this illness and wants to use a serum to cure himself. Avesta also reveals that Waller was actually planning to let the Pact steal the Riddler's body this entire time. She mentions her doubts about working for the agency and her mistrust in Waller. Avesta then asks Bruce for advice on whether or not she should remain in the agency. We ultimately tell her that it's up for her to decide, and we continue on. Arriving at the lair, we find that someone had already been here and stolen Riddler's blood samples. Avesta is able to identify a device used by agency operatives to bypass electronic locks. After this discovery, she realizes that Waller had sent agents to retrieve the samples and was planning to use it to create a usable version of Project Lotus. With it, she could blackmail the Pact into being some kind of suicide squad. We then hear a noise in Harley's office. We investigate to find John drunk at his desk. Having had his feelings for Harley broken by her betrayal, John starts to complain about his seemingly one-sided friendship with Bruce and how his life is seemingly finished. However, Bruce is able to convince him to tell them what happened, including an eyewitness account of the agency's sabotage. Deciding to locate Harley for Bruce, John leaves to track her down. We are then given the choice to either follow John or to trust that he'll make good on his promise. John's never really broken any of his promises before, so we decide to trust him again. Believing she knows where Waller is storing Riddler's blood, Avesta leaves to track them down whilst Bruce returns to the Batcave, asking Alfred to run a simulation of the Lotus's effects. Upon arriving, we find that Alfred has fallen unconscious. After ensuring he's fine, Bruce finds out that although Lotus can cure a body of certain problems, it only causes more harm by damaging the chemicals in the brain. Ironically enough, the cure that Harley was looking for her brain is likely going to hurt her more in the long run. Bruce is contacted by Avesta, and we're told that she planned to destroy the samples of Riddler's blood. We give her the go-ahead, and Bruce helps Alfred out of the cave to make sure that he's alright. After settling him on a chair, Tiffany joins them in the parlor and asks Bruce the severity of Alfred's incident. She also reveals that she has a suit designed just in case she was needed in the field. She even designed a gun for Bruce to use. A gun! After he reveals his refusal to use them, Bruce tells her to be considerate of his moral code in the future. Moments later, John contacts us and tells us where Harley is hiding. We decide to leave Alfred and Tiffany behind to investigate. We arrive at the location, which is an abandoned funhouse. Investigating inside, we discover John in a room, surrounded with bodies of Waller's agents. John claims that he killed them in self-defense, but there's a lot of holes in his story, the most damning of which being the gunshot wounds in the back of the agents.
This woman has a gunshot wound.
Oh, really?
In the back.
Oh, yeah, it's coming back to me now.
In the middle of trying to figure things out, John also reveals that he knows Bruce is Batman. He points at all the clues we've left behind throughout the game, the most obvious one being Bruce and Batman's desire for the same laptop. Desperate for Bruce's trust, John tells him that Harley is planning to hold Gotham Bridge hostage for Riddler's blood and offers to help him capture her if he believes his story. This is where the game asks us how much we're willing to listen to John despite everything that screams he's done something awful. We know that Waller isn't entirely trustworthy, but were the agents truly trying to kill John? Even if they did, how many of them did John kill without needing to do so? Looking back at the entire game, the John that I see is a man who needs help. He might not make the best decision all the time, but he doesn't attack people unless he's been provoked. Waller's willingness to cross the line is more than evidence enough that she'd send agents here with the intent to kill. Given all of that, there's no way that I couldn't trust John. Not after everything we've been through. We share a hug, and we leave the area. The two head over to Gotham Bridge to stop Harley, who is now in the midst of a standoff with the agency. Waller can't exactly meet her demands as Avesta's already destroyed the blood samples. Not my fault. When Bruce decides to negotiate with her, he's unable to get her to surrender and only makes her more angry. Knowing it will only get worse, John asks Bruce to let him try. He's seemingly able to get Harley to hand over the detonator, though his actions cause Waller to become suspicious and she orders the agents in. Knowing that this is John's moment, the time that he needs our trust more than ever, we prevent Waller from sending her agents in. John then affirms our trust as he subdues Harley and hands her over to the agency. It's beautiful how John gave up Harley for the greater good, just like how Bruce gave up Catwoman for the same thing. In this very moment, he saved the city and that cannot be taken away from him. Waller then asks for the virus, but John doesn't trust anyone to have the virus, least of all Waller.
I don't think so. I don't think anyone should have this. Least of all you.
When she turns her agents on him, John attacks and releases a smoke bomb to disorient them. Fighting through the agents sent to capture him, Bruce is only able to watch as John blows up the bombs that Harley set up.
Come on. Just work. Yes! That's what I want to see!
As he escapes, John promises to bring the agency to justice and that Batman will help him. The episode then ends with Bruce failing to stop John as he escapes into the night.
It's gonna be so much fun!
The final episode does something that I think is really neat. I've skipped through this every time, but each episode starts with Bruce doing a monologue recapping the previous events. Here, however, we instead get a call from John as he explains his promise to take Waller and the agency down. He's even recruited believers to his cause and they're drawing the agency over to them. Several hours later, Batman arrives to investigate the area. After slipping past agents present at the site, he stops one of them from executing one of the gang members. With his presence known, the agents accuse Batman of helping John escape and preventing the cause of justice. They start shooting at us with their stun pistols, managing to incapacitate us with the shock, only for one of them to have their guns knocked out of their hands. Within seconds, John arrives.
Sorry I'm late! Almost missed my own debut!
John?
Nope! Better than John! Come on, partner! Time for some justice!
This is our introduction to the Joker. This was the exact moment that I fell in love with the game. Seeing Batman and Joker teaming up together is a rarity to say the least, and seeing Joker earnestly trying to do right by Gotham is a heartwarming sight. He's using his own batarangs, and the fact that his costume is clearly made to parallel Batman's suit is just a cherry on top. He's found his place and is finally comfortable in his own skin, even losing his stutter in the process. After defeating the agents, Joker introduces us to his gang. As we discuss his methods, we fail to notice one of the agents calling the agency to summon an asset in. Moments later, a helicopter drops off a metal crate, which opens up to reveal Bane. Seeing that he seems more powerful than usual, Joker tells his followers to flee while he and Batman fight the former Pact member. Engaging Bane, the two learn that Waller has enhanced the venom and they're quickly overpowered by the criminal. Eventually, Batman and Joker are able to defeat him by ramming him with Joker's car. As Bane tries to flee, he reveals that Waller has accused Joker of murdering Riddler, which causes the new vigilante to lose control and start stabbing him with a knife. We already see things aren't going to be as simple with the Joker as we'd like. His temper is easily given way to murderous rage, and if Batman weren't there, Bane would have been turned into a corpse. The injuries from the battle start to show themselves, and Batman calls on Alfred for assistance. Arriving in an alleyway, Alfred arrives in the Batmobile and is introduced to the Joker. Receiving a medical kit from the butler, Bruce treats his injuries while Joker converses with him.
You've got a new look.
Awesome, right? You'd be amazed what you can find in thrift stores. But also on mannequins in fancy stores when no one's looking.
After patching our injuries, we're contacted by Waller, who demands we hand over the Joker and the virus or she'll reveal our identity. After she hangs up, Bruce decides to destroy the virus and asks Joker to hand it over. Though he considers using it to kill her, Joker ultimately agrees to hand it over, and we use a compartment in the Batmobile to destroy it. Knowing that we can't take Waller head on, Bruce decides to retrieve blackmail on her. We contact Avesta and then we head off to GCPD headquarters to meet with her. Arriving on the rooftop, we tell Joker to hide and then we find Avesta talking on the phone. Making his presence known, she hands over a file she has compiled of all of Waller's illegal actions. Knowing that she's practically destroyed her career, we offer her a job at Wayne Industries. Her celebration is cut short though as Waller arrives at the scene.
Well, well, well. Sorry to interrupt.
Scolding Avesta for her actions, Waller then demands the virus and the Joker. We reveal that we've already destroyed it, and Waller calls in her goons composed of Bane, Harley, and Catwoman. Yikes. Waller tries to threaten us into surrendering, only for us to send the document compiled by Avesta.
You know if your superiors see this, it destroys your career.
Finally cornering her, she agrees to leave Gotham. We have the option of negotiating for Catwoman's release, but to do that, we'd have to betray Joker and hand him over. Ultimately, I just decide that I can't do that to Joker, so I just let her have Catwoman. As the meeting draws to a close, Joker makes his presence known and yells at Batman for letting Waller get off easy. Accusing Waller of Riddler's murder, he attacks her when she denies her involvement, causing her to order her team to attack him. In order to protect both sides, we're forced to fight Bane, Harley, and Catwoman while also stopping Joker from attacking Waller. Eventually, the agency arrives and overwhelms us. With no other alternative, Joker throws 2 bombs into the crowd. Unwilling to let them harm others, Batman chases after and throws one of the bombs out of the range, though he is caught in the blast of the second bomb. Thrown through a hole created by the blast, Batman gets impaled on a construction rod and oh my god! The fact that he's still conscious is a freaking miracle! We're helped up to our feet by Avesta and we call down the Batmobile. She helps us inside and we lose consciousness on the way back to the manor. Waking up in the Batcave, Bruce finds himself in the medical bay being treated by Alfred. Sharing a joke, Alfred tells him about the severity of his injuries and reveals that Joker's actions have caused panic across Gotham.
Gotham is still picking up the pieces after a man calling himself Joker led an assault on the GCPD.
There has been no confirmation whether Amanda Waller, director of the agency, is still alive.
The pursuit led onto the sidewalk where frightened citizens dove for cover.
Officers chased the madman for hours after the attack,
We know
but
that
lost him in the chaos.
11 people were seriously
This
injured.
incident has many wondering, who is the Joker? Where did he come from? And where will his reign of terror end?
Knowing that we're responsible for this, we decide to find a new vigilante and rescue Waller. After being helped off of the operating table, Bruce makes his way to the Batcomputer to locate Joker. We narrow his location down to Ace Chemicals and we head on out. Upon arriving, Batman finds Joker and Waller in the main mixing chamber where he is forcing her to confess her crimes and recording them. As Batman tries to get Joker to release her, he begins to doubt his stance against crime and the methods he uses to achieve these. Once again, Joker tries to get Waller to confess to Riddler's murder only for her to continue denying it. Joker tries to kill her only for us to try and stop him. Fleeing to another area of the building, Joker orders his gang to hold off Batman, only for the vigilante to easily defeat the group. Chasing after him, Batman confronts Joker, who threatens to kill Waller unless she confesses. However, Tiffany arrives and reveals that she is Riddler's murderer, even showing the poison that she used to kill him. Angered that Batman would defend her, Joker attacks only for us to continue standing in his way. Waller tackles him off the railing and he is quickly surrounded by Waller's agents. Cornered, betrayed, and furious, John finally breaks.
I believed in you, Batman. Like I never believed in anything. And it was all a lie!
John.
It's Joker!
This scene. This is the scene that broke my heart. Watching John completely losing control and his sanity snapping just hurts so much, knowing that he tried his absolute best at every step along the way. The thing that kills me is that earlier in the game, he mentioned that he laughs when he's feeling nervous. Right now, he's not just laughing because he's having a mental breakdown, he's laughing because he's terrified at what he's allowed himself to become. We now have no choice but to fight him until he can't fight back anymore.
I guess that's it. I really wanted to be a hero, you know? But I just can't. I know you used me. I know I should hate you for that. But I don't, because I had such a good time with you, Bruce. Did you ever think of me as your friend? Like a true friend? Someone you actually care about?
Of course. Of course you were my friend.
You are one messed up guy.
The Enemy Within isn't just a Batman story. It's a tragedy about the price of loyalty and the weight of betrayal. Telltale gave us a Joker who was as sympathetic as he is terrifying, and a Bruce Wayne more vulnerable than ever. In doing so, they created one of the most powerful Batman stories ever told, a story that asks, how far can we fall before we lose ourselves entirely? For Bruce, every step closer to taking the Pact down means another step away from his principles. The more he tries to keep his cover, the more he risks becoming exactly what he despises. But what makes it all the more difficult is John. He sees Bruce as a friend, a mentor, and maybe even something more. He's clingy, needy, and dangerously devoted. He believes Bruce genuinely cares about him, and honestly, you can't help but feel for the guy. At the end of the day, he isn't wrong. We did use him as a tool. We were preying on his need for our validation, and we did take advantage of him at his lowest point. As much as we believe we're doing things for the greater good, how is that any different from what Waller does? At the end of the game, Selina's stuck in the agency's grasp, John is locked up in Arkham, and worst of all, Alfred has finally reached his limits and has decided to finally leave Bruce behind to live his own life. At the end of the story, there's only one thing we can do. Be there for a friend.
Visitor for John Doe.
Bruce!